and thank you for the invitation to participate in this conference. And the outset, I would like to emphasize that I do not conduct academic research on the 17th century history of Vilnius. However, in my presentation, I would like to briefly outline the legacy left by Vasa Dynasty in Vilnius. My talk will be based on the publication of renewed scholars of the Vasa Dynasty history in Vilnius, including Prof. Birutė Vitkauskienė, Eugenija Ulčinaitė, Mariusz Karpovich, and Anna Silviačiš. I have no doubt that all these topics will be well known to the conference participants. The Vasa Dynasty left numerous traces in the history and architecture of Vilnius. These include buildings and great importance in the history of the city, cultural monuments and literary heritage that emerged during their reign, both as a result of their presence in the capital of the Grand Duchy of the Lithuania and due to their patronage. The Vasa brought outstanding Italian architects, sculptors and painters to Vilnius, thanks to whom the city acquired magnificent Baroque architectural painting and sculpture masterpieces. And in Vilnius and beyond the capital of Lithuania, artists who usually served the king had the opportunity to showcase their skills first in Krakow and Warsaw, and only later were they sent to the third residence of the rulers of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. This explains, among other things, the stylistic similarities between works created in these capitals. St. Casimir Chapel. Among the outstanding architects was Matteo Castello, who designed St. Casimir Chapel in Vilnius Cathedral, founded by Sigismundus III Vasa. The construction of the chapel was completed during the reign of Władysław IV between 1634 and 1636 under supervision of Constante Tencale and relative of Matteo Castello, a Lombard architect educated in Rome. Tencale was closely associated and collaborated as a sculptor with Carlo Maderna in Rome. During his stay in Vilnius, he had no shortage of commissions. This artist was well known for his work in the territories of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The cornerstone for St. Casimir Chapel was laid on Mars 1624. The chapel became a true ornament of the city. The primary construction work was completed in 1631. However, decorative work inside in the chapel continued into 1640s, overseen by Władysław IV Vasa. He allocated 15,000 zlotys for St. Casimir Chapel, although he had no to borrow this sum. During his stay in Vilnius on August 1636, the king, along with members of the royal family, participated in the ceremonial transfer of St. Casimir relics to the newly built chapel. This event was planned to mark the conclusion of his visit. Numerous officials and distinguished guests attend the ceremony. The highlight was a grand procession through the main streets of Vilnius, where 6 specially decorated rooms gates had been installed. The king led the procession with the royal family and the most important nobles of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. A royal orchestra played and psalms resonated through the city. The chapel became an integral part of the castle as it was connected by a gallery to the private royal chambers, reflecting the fact that the Vasas regarded it as their private chapel. In accordance with the founder's intention, the chapel served as a votive offering of victories over Moscow, attributed to the patronage of St. Casimir, and as a mausoleum for the Jagiellonian dynasty. The king wanted the remains of the Jagellons, Alexander Jagellon and two wives of Sigismund Augustus, Elizabeth of Austria and Barbara Radziwiłł, buried in the cathedral's underground chambers to be transferred to the crypt beneath St. Casimir Chapel. And Lower Castle. The Vasas also contributed to the reconstruction of the Lower Castle, the residence of the kings of Poland and Grand Dukes of Lithuania. The major reconstruction began during the reign of Sigismund III Vasa. The work carried between 1624 and 1631 aimed to restore the damages caused by fire of 1610. Art historian Arna Silviacic states that the author of the castle's reconstruction remained unknown, while the chief architect Konstanty Tenkala, the most prominent representative of Baroque in the Polish-Lithuania Commonwealth, arrived in Vilnius in 1623. The team working on the castle reconstruction later decorated St. Casimir Chapel, particularly Konstanty Tenkala and his brother Jacobo Tenkala. However, the exact scope of the work conducted at the Lower Castle has not been determined. As a result of the reconstruction, the castle area was expanded and Grand Gate was arranged, connecting it with the ceremonial Vilnius Via Regia. According to art historian Sigismund III in Vilnius linked the residential area with the religious sphere and established the sanctuary of St. Casimir in the cathedral. The Moscow's troops, entered Vilnius in 1655. They destroyed the castle, the royal residence, and the cathedral also suffered damage. Another building associated with Vasas was St. Casimir Church, this one, whose founders were members of the noble families Radziwiłł, Sapiehas and Chodkiewicz. However, this project also received financial support from Sigismund III Vasa. The Jesuits' church, modeled after the Roman Il Gesù, was built as a votive offering following the canonization of Kazimierz Jagiellon. On May 64, the cornerstone for the church construction was laid. The Vasa coat of arms also appeared on the portal of the discalced Carmelite Church of St. Teresa. The church was founded by Stefan Pats, the Lithuanian treasurer. After his death, Władysław IV took the discalced Carmelites under his protection, and they had a monastery adjacent to St. Teresa Church. According to Anna Chills, the placement of the Vasa coat of arms on the portal was not accidental. The church was located in the ceremonial space along the processional road that connected with the Via Regia and the market square. The same builders who worked on other royal projects, including Konstanty Tenkala, were involved in the construction of St. Teresa Church. In the face of the threat from Moscow, Władysław IV Vasa also made defensive investment in Vilnius. Two prominent court artists of John II Kazimierz Vasa, who spent 2 years in Vilnius, also left their mark on the city. These were the architect Giovanni Battista Ghisleni and the sculptor Francesco dei Rossi. Ghisleni was a Roman specialist in so-called smaller architecture, altars, sarcophagi, and commemorative plaques. Through his regular travels to Rome, he kept up with emerging artist trends and incorporated them into work. Ghisleni brought his friend San Francisco dei Rossi to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Rossi, a Roman sculptor and assistant to Bernini. Dei Rossi is known as the creator of the bronze buste of Bishop Jerzy Tyszkiewicz in Vilnius Cathedral, and as a co-creator alongside Ghisleni of the tomb of Theodora Christina Sapieha in St. Michel's Church in Vilnius. He also worked for her husband, Kazimierz Leon Sapieha, the Lithuanian chancellor. Gisleny's particular specialty was theatrical decoration and ephemeral architecture, including triumph arches and ceremonial gates. Another master architect was Agostino Locci, a royal architect who collaborated with Tencale. However, Locci's primary occupation was and passion lay in constructing large-scale theatrical machines and designing elaborate stage decoration used in performances. According to Mariusz Karpovich's thesis, Italian artists served an unifying factor in contemporary Europe, that to them the peripheral capital of the Grand Duchy became somewhat kind to the major European centers. However, bringing Italian artists to the distant city of Vilnius was significantly more expensive than having them work in Italy, Vienna, or even Krakow. The Vasas and the local patrons played a major role in this process. The Vasas understood the importance of artistic investment and their propagandistic power. During their reign, Vilnius acquired a Baroque character. Unfortunately, the dramatic events associated with the reign of John Casimir Vasa were not conducive to preserving the Vasa's legacy. The Vasas took the University of Vilnius under their patronage. During their reign, the first translation of Bible into Polish was published, known as the Bible of Jakub Wujek, a Jesuit and rector of the University of Vilnius. The Jesuit priest included a dedication in the Bible addressed to Sigismund III Vasa. On the occasion of visit by representative of the Vasa dynasty, Latin dedicatory works, poems, speeches were written by professors and students of the University of Vilnius. For example, a collection of occasional poetry and speeches was written in honor of Sigismund III Vasa's visit to Vilnius in 1589. The speeches were delivered not only in Latin, but also in Italian, Spanish, French, German, English, Polish, and Lithuanian. The welcoming ceremonies for royal visit, prepared according to a rich script of events, primarily took place along the Via Regia and the Rudnitska Gate and the Mednitska Gate, where temporary structures adorned with coats of arms, allegories, and Latin inscriptions were erected. The main ceremonies then took place in the palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania. In the decoration specifically created for the event, as a significant focus was placed on the symbolism of the Vasa coat of arms, snopek. During his 15-year reign, Vladislav IV Vasa was visited Vilnius 6 times, not counting his earlier visit during his youth when he participated in the military campaign to Smolensk. After his final visit, subsequent rulers rarely visited Vilnius. Among his visits, one notable occasion was when he participated in the ceremony marking the awarding of doctorate in theological science to the Jesuit Maciej Kazimierz Sarbiewski on July 1636. The ceremony took place at the Church of St. John. Sarbiewski wrote a work dedicated to the hunting expeditions of Vasa in the Lithuanian forest, titled Forest Games. Maciej Kazimierz Sarbiewski was one of the most prominent European Baroque poets and professor at the University of Vilnius, who became the court preacher to Vladislav IV Vasa. No? Thanks to Vladislav, Fourth Vasa, of the approximately 10 operas were staged on his initiative. 3 were performed in the palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania. Vilnius became one of the first cities outside Italy to host an opera after Salzburg, Prague, Vienna, or Warsaw. On September 4th, 1636, Il Rato de Helena, The Rape of Helen, was performed. The premieres of Andromeda and Circe Delusa also took place in Vilnius. Libretti for the opera Andromeda I forgot. It's University, Vilnius University, Sarbievijus Court, and also Vilnius University. I forget to change slides. Also Vladislav IV is, and in libretti for the opera Andromeda and possibility for all the operas were published at the printing house of the Vilnius University. Author Virgilio Potticelli, royal secretary, with the scenography by Agostino Locci. It's assumed that the music was composed by Marco Scacci. In his journal, Chancellor of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, Albrecht Stanislav Radziwiłł wrote that the first opera, Il Ratio di Helena, went for 5 hours and was enchanting for its music and for the astounding stage decoration. In Vilnius, there was no dedicated hall for opera performances. Opera were staged in large residential halls. Before his last visit, Vladislav IV ordered that musicians, scorers for the pieces, as well as the theatrical equipments and furniture for the guests, be sent to Vilnius to be used during the performances. As I mentioned earlier, Vilnius was preparing for the king's arrival. The nobility was getting ready to welcome the king and queen. The king arrived in Vilnius on March 10, but then went to Rudniki, and the ceremonial entry into the city took place on March 19, on the first Thursday after Easter. The comedy Circe Delusa was performed, which was again staged on April 25. Vladislav IV maintained an orchestra in Vilnius with about 30 opera singers, 20 ballet dancers, and 10 actors. Thanks to the investments of the Vasa family, Vilnius became home to some of the most beautiful examples of Baroque architecture. The city's charm was greatly enhanced by stunning churches built by the greatest creator in the Commonwealth. During royal visits, the main streets of the city were transformed into open-air theaters. Temporary buildings were erected, welcome speeches were prepared, and poetic works were created by professors and students of the Vilnius Academy or Vilnius University. Thanks to the visits of the Vasa family, a wide array of events took place. The performance involved not only the magnates and nobilities, but also the ordinary residents of the city. The turbulent history of the city has led to the fact that not all monuments have been preserved in the form they existed during the time of the Vasa dynasty, and many works of occasional literature were lost during the dramatic events that befell the city and the country. Thank you.